Hey, today we are going to start the assembly and animation of the crank slider assembly. In the end, it should look like this. Now, before you get started, I want you to realize that before we can animate with degrees of freedom, we need to assemble this crank slider. So you'll see we have all our different parts laid out. You have the base, you have the, the rod? No, the rod is this one. Let's see. There we go. I named all my parts. So we have the base, we have the crank, we have the rod, we have the slider, and then they're fixed together with pins. So the crank is connected to the base with one pin, the crank is connected to the rod with another pin, and the rod is connected to the slider with two pins, one on each side. So, to do this, I go into my assembly document and I lay out all the parts I need. I got 4 pins for all the different components that we are going to assemble together. Now the first thing we need to do is ground the base. And unlike Inventor, to ground this you have to right click it and click Fix. That's going to fix it to the virtual space. With this part, if you want to just move things around so you can see it better, the Transform button is your friend, and that's that square that shows up. So now we go into the point of assembling. Reference that picture, because, let's see, the base is in the back, and then every piece kind of comes forward to the foreground bit by bit. So I'm going to use revolute mates because that allows you to spin the components. So I'm going to attach this to, let's see, the back of this. And now these things are stuck with each other. We say OK. And now I'm also going to include this pin. So once again, revolute mate, this to the very front of that front pin. Say OK, and it should look like this. Actually, I lied. I don't like this. So let's offset it a little bit. Let's try 0.25. Nope. Let's undo. Okay, I'm going to do this revolute mate from here to front here. And now I'm going to offset it. The distance, if it's 1 inch, and each of those is a quarter, so it's going to be a 1/4 inch. And that's telling me it's going the other direction. I'm going to flip the primary axis. No, I'm not. Let's go negative 0.125. Okay, so I put in negative 0.125, and that has put the pin exactly in the center where I need it. I'm going to continue this process with the other components. Before I do that, though, I think it's handy that we can actually click and drag the parts that we want to have spinning around to just see that it's replicating the movement that we want. Once again, revolute mate. I'm going to pick the front of this. Yeah, that's fine. And the back of this. That's good. Looking like what I want. Here it spins. Here it spins. Very good. And now I'm going to get that pin in there. And as I've learned, we pick that front, there we go, with an offset of negative 0.25. And I say enter. That one doesn't work the way I want. Alright, so I guess you just got to pick. You got to look at the preview and see whether or not you want it to be one way or the other. Now this one's going to be funky, like James Brown. So here's what I'm going to recommend here. Let's get that revolute, mate. And we are going to set up this pin with this side. And let's see. Really, I think it should be 2 pins. But I'm just following the book here. I'll do another one like this. And I'm going to set this up to align with that inside edge. So it's actually not even. I'm sure you could figure that out. Just 0.1. I could do that. Let me not be lazy. It's going to be half the distance. Okay. And then this one, I'm going to go back and I'm going to edit. Let's see. Yeah, double click the component. Yeah, maybe not. Okay, double click the revolute. This is going to let me go back into it, and I'm going to just set it up with that -1.125. And that's the wrong way, so I'm going to just edit it. Go back into that revolute. 0.125. Alright, nearly there. Last task is to get these pieces pinned into the slider. So, what I'm going to do is another revolute. And let's see, I'm going to turn this so I can see that inside hole. That's going to line up. Okay. Now, I'm going to offset it. Let's see, if it's 1 inch long, let's go 0.75. And now I highly recommend changing your rotation so you can see what it looks like. That's not exactly what we want. Oh, that's because it's not angled the correct way. Okay. So let's see if I could just rotate this. Okay, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to make, once I release, I can type in 90. So it's lined up the way I want it. I'm going to then transform it, get it to move in the direction I want. Very good. And now, let's see, revolute. I'm actually going to revolve from here into this hole. That's going to set me up with one side. So here it's just a little too close. So now I'm going to offset it depending on how I want it. So let's try that negative. Let's try that 0.25. I think it's negative. Nope. I still don't like it. So I think it's going to be 0.25 and, oh, wait, maybe it is negative 0.25. Yep, 1/4 inch. So now it's got it centered, and honestly, you don't need to fasten the other side because it's going to be locked on that pivot. So at this point, you should have, oh, there we go. Well, it looks like I set up all my things opposite. It still works the same way. So basically, rather than have this pin sticking out in, oh boy, I haven't had my coffee yet. So here we go. the base is grounded, I can rotate this to get some movement. I can rotate this to get some movement. And I can rotate this freely. We're going to set constraints so that items only move the way that we want. This one's going to need linear motion. All these will need not linear, revolute, revolution, what do you call it, animations. Now, to also support the motion that we're trying to get, we don't want this thing freely spinning. So we have to figure out some sort of way to make this slide back and forth only. To do that, I had some success with one type of mate. So to do this, I used the tangent mate on the front edge, the curve. That's going to be tangent to the bottom. And now, when I pull this, did I hit the right one? There we go. It has achieved a linear motion in the direction I want. Now, it isn't perfect. Ideally, you would want this piston cap to be centered to the same height, and you could probably create objects for that, but this is sufficient for what we're doing.